While incidents of police brutality frequent news headlines and the issues of racial bias and systemic racism have reached a fevered pitch.
On the south side of Minneapolis, after protesters took to the streets to demand justice for George Floyd, the unarmed, handcuffed black man who pleaded with a police officer to let him breathe.
The National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, or NOBLE, says the time is now for this country to reimagine public safety. It's why NOBLE National President Lynda Williams has formed the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force.
The premise of this task force to have those candid conversations, and we lead the conversation, that we speak for the law enforcement executives that we are, so that people can understand that we are committed to do our jobs and do it well and protect those communities that we raised our hand to serve.
To me, this is a critical time. We've got to make the right steps. There's no ask. They've gotten everybody's attention. Everybody's sitting here on pause like, okay, what we do next?
We know that I got to teach my kids what to do when stopped by the police. That's true. I know I still can get profiled and treated a certain way because of the color of my skin. That's a truth. I also know as a cop that the vast majority of cops are good men and women trying to do a tremendously hard job, and that they're selfless servants who are willing to put their lives on the line. But I know if the system is failing us and is flawed, then even good cops have bad outcomes.
Reimagining public safety starts with a sobering, truthful assessment of where we are today.
Does the Trump Justice Department seek to end systemic racism and racism in law enforcement? I just need a yes or no answer.
I don't agree that there's systemic racism in the police department.
Specifically,
generally in this country.
I heard the testimony of Attorney General Barr that stated just what you played, that he did not believe that systemic racism was real. And so I popped in and said, sir, just because one does not experience something does not negate its existence. That law enforcement is a microcosm of society, and it's to be real. But you can't resolve a problem unless you acknowledge a problem.
That's why the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force is charged with creating a roadmap to the future of law enforcement, while also recommending strategic funding decisions as a tool to begin to build a reimagined public safety system for us all.
There is an over-reliance of police. Think about it. Police officers are called to do everything, from the homeless person to the domestic violence. That police have to respond to every call, even those things that are non-related to law enforcement.
We have defaulted to the police over the last 30 years by defunding everything else. So now if a person is in crisis, instead of getting a mental health worker, you get one of my 25-year-old cops at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to de-escalate something that he or she, although trained, is not their specialty.
Through the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force, NOBLE takes a bold step forward in correcting systemic issues, not just in the neighborhoods across America, but also in the police agencies tasked with protecting them.
Until people realize the systemic racism in law enforcement, we're gonna have these problems. I cannot count on two hands how many times I was jacked up as an undercover narcotics agent.
If we don't speak when we see injustice, then we've done ourselves a great disservice. That's why we have organizations such as NOBLE. I think if we do these things, then our diversity becomes our strength, our history becomes a reminder and reminds us which way to go, and we find ourselves making positive changes and not trying to defend a system that we know is extremely flawed.
It's why the members of NOBLE and the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force are taking a brave stand to assess, address, and correct the very system to which they each accepted a call to serve.
I'm excited about this reimagining policing piece because if we don't dictate this narrative, someone else will, and it'll go down the wrong street. I'm very, very interested in making sure that my successors have a better ride.
Systemic racism is part of our American culture. It's embedded in every facet of life. Systemic racism is just as American as apple pie.
Reimagining is when everybody respects one another, when everybody has a mutual appreciation of one another, that we are proud to serve the communities that we are charged to protect, and they appreciate and know that law enforcement is there, that we are transparent, we are accountable, and that we have the trust and the confidence to carry out the jobs, to be the guardians and not the warriors of our communities.